Good evening and welcome to We the People. In the past few weeks, as elections draw closer, we have seen a spate of high-profile civil servants, whether they've been bureaucrats or police officers, joining different political parties. This, of course, is not new. It's happened many times before. But it brings the focus back on whether this is a healthy trend that should be encouraged or whether this raises serious questions over the objectivity of decisions taken place by public servants while they were in office. The Election Commission had proposed in the past a cooling off period before those in civil services embrace politics. Why has that not been converted into law? Would that solve once and for all the skepticism, the concerns that some people have about this growing trend? That's what we'll be asking on We the People today. Let me start with KG Alphonse, who's somebody who's been a bureaucrat, who has now joined the BJP. Mr. Alphonse, you have, of course, not immediately left the services to join. There are questions raised about whether there should be a cooling off period. For example, there is one such period if you need a job in the private sector. You can't do it for 1 year till after you've left. Do you believe that there are serious questions that arise about objectivity of decisions taken while in service if this trend increases of public servants joining politics?
Yeah, now to make a correction, in fact, I quit IAS and I became an MLA, independent MLA on 32nd day after my resignation.
Yes.
So mine is possibly been the fastest, transit from bureaucracy to politics.
Yes.
But of course, I became an independent MLA. I didn't join a political party.
But isn't that different? Well, by definition, that's different because nobody could turn around and accuse you of having done one or the other party favors.
Not really. It's politics. It's hardcore politics.
Yeah.
I don't really differentiate this from joining any political party. Now, my opinion is there really should be no cool-off period for bureaucrats.
No cool-off period?
I believe there should be no cool-off period.
Whether you're being an independent MLA, MP or really joining a mainstream political party?
I believe there should be no cool-off because there is no conflict of interest, because as a bureaucrat, you are really basically working for the citizen. And if you're working for a citizen and if you've been good at it, and electoral politics is all about your acceptance by people, have you been good at the job, has a citizen accepted you? And if you are only good at your job, and if the citizen perceived you as being good, then only you would be successful in a democracy.
Here you have Mr. Alphonse, who says, I first became an independent MLA and now I'm with the mainstream political party. I don't believe there's a cooling off period. Why your case is very interesting, Mr. Khemka, is that you actually have a party, the Aam Aadmi Party, that wants you to join the party. You have said, no, I will not join politics, even though here's a party saying, Mr. Khemka, please come and join us. Why have you decided not to join politics?
Barkha, the views which I express here are personal and not that of the government. But having said so, why I have decided not to join any particular political party is a personal belief or faith. I take pride in being a civil servant, and I reiterate it once more that I will continue to be so till I attain 60 years of age.
And even now, the dozens of transfers you've been through have not made you cynical.
Well, that's a part of the game and that's the risk associated with the job. And if you don't enjoy a profession, Barkha, like if you don't enjoy your profession, you should not be there. So I enjoy it. So to ask anybody who enjoys his profession to come and join politics, I think is a non sequitur.
What about after you retire?
Well, because after I retire, I'll answer that question when I attain 60 years. Let's not preempt this question right now.
Before I take this to R.K. Singh, what is your comment on the wider trend that we are seeing in this election?
The question of conflict of interest.
Yes.
Now, the conflict of interest only arises if you have worked with a political party while in service and you have joined that particular political party. Now, in the case of the recent trend, you are finding civil servants joining a particular political party or parties. One good thing you can see is that there is no conflict of interest because the government, the political party who was in the government, they have not necessarily joined that political party. So, there is, if you believe in the concept of free choice of a citizen, you will find that they have served very dutifully. There is no charge sheet, no charge against them of not being neutral while being in service.
So let me understand, this is an interesting point. But this is an interesting point because I'm going to ask Mr. R.K. Singh next. There are a number of issues that are political hot potatoes and they may be relevant to the government that is coming next. So is it enough for you to say that as long as you don't support the party that's in power, there's no conflict of interest?
I don't say that. See, I say a very simple thing. Anybody who has joined political service, if there is a case that he has not been fair or neutral while in service,
yes,
you can as well charge sheet him, and there is a limitation of 4 years after retirement while you can charge sheet him. So take action, but do not restrict the freedom of choice. What is more deterrent, Barkha, is not these people joining politics, but people now in the civil servants. There is enough politicking, and at 59 years of age, they become the weakest in their service career, and they want 5 years of extension in their service, and they beg their political masters. So the greater danger in civil service is those bureaucrats who at the fag end of their service career want a post-retirement sinecure, and they do not want to take the hard way, because politics is definitely a hard path.
That's very interesting. You're saying the post-retirement governorship, for example, just to give an example, is actually an easy route. And,
yes.
and you have to lobby for it. You have to do politics within the service for it.
Absolutely.
And contesting an election or joining a mainstream political party is a healthier form of political interest. Very interesting distinction there. R.K. Singh, former Union Home Secretary, now with the BJP. Let me put this to you. People have, you have grabbed the headlines for many reasons. You first grabbed the headlines when you arrested Mr. Advani long back as a young bureaucrat. While you were in government, your government or the government you were serving in took a position on right-wing terror. It took a position on the Ishrat Jahan case. Today you are with the political party, Mr. R.K. Singh, that has a very distinct position on many of these issues. Do you believe that you had to take one position while you were Home Secretary and take another position now that you're with the BJP?
Absolute nonsense. Now, Barkha, 2, 3 things.
Yeah.
One, you have serving politicians, hardcore politicians, active politicians as ministers. That means they are in politics and in government at the same time.
Okay.
You don't have any objection to that, because that is the system. How can you object to somebody who has retired from service or who has resigned from service joining politics? Because you have the ministers who are in politics and still handling and taking decisions. The final decisions in government are taken by ministers, not by officers. So conceptually, this very question is wrong. Now, let's come to the issue of conflict of interest.
Yes.
Number one, there is no question of any conflict of interest, because an officer in the civil service, he works in the field of governance, he works in government.
Yes.
And if you join politics, you are in the same field, in the field of governance, making policy, administration.
Okay, okay.
You are in government.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So you are not changing fields.
I've understood what you're saying, but let me ask you, for example, in your case, let me, one minute, Mr. R.K. Singh, let me get a question.
Just finish. The third point, my question to you is,
yes,
is what sort of people do you want in politics?
Okay.
Do you want politicians? Do you want politicians to be as they are currently, 80% of them or 70% of them?
Okay.
The education not be, whatever that be educational standard, that is not relevant. The current flock of politicians, 70%, 60% of them, education is, what?
I understand what you're asking.
Or do you want people who have worked maybe in the government or in the private sector?
So you're saying that experience is useful, and actually politics. Bureaucrats would make the transition more naturally to politics. But Neeraj Kumar, let me get you in. I come back to the point that will be raised. For example, when Mr. R.K. Singh had a very public disagreement with Mr. Shinde, who's presently the Home Minister, the Congress turned around and told Mr. R.K. Singh, he's saying it because he's joined the BJP. So my question is that all questions suddenly all decisions you've taken come under a cloud of politics. I will put it to Mr. R.K. Singh as well. But what do you believe? Because you were also dragged into that controversy.
No,
Mr. Singh, why don't you answer the question I'm asking you? You had a disagreement with Mr. Shinde. The Congress turned around and said it's because you've joined the BJP. So is that a peril of the whole thing?
No. And any officer working in the government works under the minister.
Yes.
Who is a politician? Who is an active member of a political party?
Yes.
Now, if that officer deviates from his impartiality,
yes,
then the concerned minister will sort of recommend to the government that he should be charge sheeted.
Mr. R.K. Singh, just wait, please. Let's just expand what we are saying. Neeraj Kumar, I used the example of the recent controversy, the dispute or the disagreement between Mr. Singh and Mr. Shinde as an example to highlight what sometimes happens. That whether it's the Ishrat Jahan controversy, whether it's IPL tomorrow, whether it is right-wing terror, any of these. Let's say you as a police commissioner had to investigate as you have had to all of these issues, and tomorrow you join a political party that has a political position on these issues. Will there not be a conflict? Would people not look back and say, Mr. Kumar, when you were a police officer, you took ABC position because you were already planning to join ABC party?
That is, if I take an opposite view. If supposing I have taken a view on IPL and said that Mr. Srishant and 2 other cricketers were involved in the IPL. If supposing after I join politics and I take a contrary view that they were not, then there would be questions asked.
You know, but for example, about Mr. Satyapal Singh, who's also joined politics, his critics have raised questions about his recusing himself from an SIT in the Ishrat Jahan case, and then he joined the BJP. So questions have been raised like that, and it's not particular to any one party. These can be raised about, Mr. Khemka has taken a position on the Robert Vadra case. Tomorrow, if he joins a political party that also raises that issue, somebody will turn around and say, as they did with Mr. Singh, "Arey, you had planned this all along."
No, let them say what they want to say. You see, people will always talk and people will always raise fingers. But I just want to inform all the viewers that this issue of bureaucrats joining politics and of
police officers joining,
and of a cooling off period has been gone into in great detail by the government, and legal opinion was taken. And the government came to the conclusion that
it was not necessary.
Not necessary.
What do you think? What do you think? I'll put the EC's point to S.Y. Qureshi, but what do you think as a police officer? Do you believe a cooling off period is needed?
Not at all.
Why not?
Why should there be cooling off?
Why not? Because of the questions I've raised about possible conflicts of interest.
Your conduct as a bureaucrat or as a police officer has been within the framework of the laws. So, I mean, you have not taken anything, taken a decision, if you are a good police officer or a good bureaucrat, anything beyond that. So, where is the question of any conflict of interest?
Let's not confuse the conflict of interest between taking up a private sector job and being in the government than being in the government and joining politics. Because take, for example, a joint secretary petroleum, joining Reliance Petroleum. There is a definite conflict of interest here. But joining politics is not in conflict of interest because you serve the democracy while being a civil servant.
But sir, what about a police officer? I'm raising hypothetically. Can I just take this to S.Y. Qureshi, then I'll come back to you. What about a police officer? And we have so many eminent retired police officers on this panel who is asked to investigate a case. Now, Neeraj Kumar makes the interesting point that as long as my public position on it, my stated position doesn't change when I join politics, there should be no problem. I have to remain intellectually consistent. But, sir, the Election Commission thought otherwise. The Election Commission thought a cooling off period was necessary. Why did you think that, sir?
Barka, there are 3 issues here. One, whether the bureaucrats should join politics. My answer is yes, they should at some point because they bring a lot of experience. Secondly, the concept of cooling off itself. The concept is well established that you can't join a private sector after your job because you may have may have been conflict.
But that's also just a 1-year cooling off period.
1 year or 2 years, but the concept is there. Because, you know, if you're working on the desk and doing everything to benefit your client. And we have seen even, you know, there are lots of people, say, somebody dealing with World Bank and immediately after that joining the World Bank. Somebody working with one UN organization, WHO, joining that. That means you are not working for your government, then you are working for those guys. Now, if the concept of cooling off is accepted, then it also extends to politicians. Talking of police officers, you know, as election commissioners, the maximum complaint that we used to come across was against police officers and other civil servants who were hobnobbing with politicians all the time. Several times we had to change the DGPs, even Home Secretaries and even the Chief Secretary because they were not neutral.
So what is a reasonable cooling off period according to you?
No, that can be debated. Ideally it should be 2, but at least there should be 1 year. But still staying on that, the fact that we had to change some DGPs. There was one DGP who started nursing his constituency All his visits, 50, 60 visits in 1 year were to that place. He promoted 250 police officers there just to benefit, so that as soon as he jumps into politics, now what else is this?
Let me get Prakash Singh in there. Would you agree with that? I mean, these examples that you're hearing, nobody, you know, Mr. Alphonse, Neeraj Kumar, Ashok Khemka, have not really, RK Singh have not agreed with this formulation. Ashok Khemka made a personal decision. Neeraj Kumar, you haven't joined politics yet, but could you? Would you consider it?
Well, I haven't made up my mind.
Should I be asking you? Should I be asking you which party?
I think you should allow to keep my options open.
Okay, so there is clearly
you want to make up your mind quickly. The elections.
Make up your mind quickly.
Okay, tickets are being distributed now.
Yes. More seriously, the examples that are coming from Dr. Qureshi.
You see, there is a certain trend which is becoming not only manifest, but which is becoming very prominent. That officers, as they near superannuation, they start working on planning for post-retirement. It may be politics, it may be a post-retirement job or sinecure assignment by the government of India as governor, ambassador, whatever it is. Both these features are there.
Yes.
Now, that being so, in about, I would say, the last year of their service,
yes,
I would say 80 to 90% of the officers in the highest positions, I mean, this is my assessment, 80 to 90% of the officers, they start either cultivating the politicians or they start working for a post-retirement berth. And this affects their objectivity, their impartiality and their attitude. And I would say that there is a conflict of interest in political field. There could be a conflict of interest in otherwise also.
So you would support a cooling off period?
I would say that there should be a cooling off period, whether you are joining politics or whether you are being considered for extension or any post-retirement job like ambassador or governor or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I'm of the firm view that for joining politics, there should be a cooling off of at least 1 year, and for any other post-retirement assignment by the government or in a public sector undertaking, it should be at least a 2-year cooling off, because this period will lead to some kind of deflating of your personality and bringing you to the level of other citizens.
You want us to be deflated before we get into it?
Deflated in the sense, yes, deflated.
Be deflated before you get inflated.
Yes, I want you to come to your original level.
I think what you're saying is level playing field, but Ambassador K.C. Singh, diplomats are also joining politics. Did you ever think about it?
No, let me get to the broader question, because I was shocked at the response of the former Home Secretary. He doesn't seem to understand the role of the bureaucracy, that there's no distinction between bureaucracy and politics, that it's a seamless flow from one to the other. This is a very hard-fought independence that many generations of bureaucrats from 47 have created for bureaucracy. This is a service inherited from the British. It was suspected after 47 because they were seen as collaborators with the British. But ICS and IP officers stayed on and showed their independence and showed to the extent that the politicians started even resenting them. You say, ye note chadhata hai file ke upar.
So you're saying this thing where there's a natural progression is hugely problematic.
Let me say, there are 760 odd districts.
Yeah, 1 second, Mr. Singh.
Yes, he has had enough time. No, let me just speak.
Yes.
There's 760 odd districts in the country. 1,500 officers are running this country on a day-to-day basis.
Yes.
We've all held positions at the highest level. We have agreed or disagreed with ministers. The point is that you are supposed to do that privately. You disagree with a minister. If you feel very strongly about it, you leave then. There's no question. It's a very childish excuse to say he would have charge sheeted me. What kind of bravery is this at the Home Secretary level that you can't disagree with your minister?
So you're saying Mr. Singh should have either left or disagreed with Mr. Shinde then?
He's making excuses which make me so sorry that people can rise to such level in this country. We have disagreed. I was with the President as a Deputy Secretary when he had a disagreement with the Prime Minister of India. I would never come out with an argument like this. I was loyal to the President. I was sent there. And I be loyal to the person in terms of the Indian Constitution.
I want to explore this idea of loyalty a little more.
Loyalty to the office.
Loyalty to the office, not to the person.
Not to the person.
Okay.
So we were defending the independence of the
president.
Therefore, the independence of the bureaucracy is a very important thing to keep this country's, that's the skeleton on which this country's system runs. And if that you meld and you allow everybody to get into politics, well, God save you then.
Okay. the people seem to agree with you,
now
Mr.
May I answer?
Yes,
now may I answer?
Yes, Mr. R.K. Singh, please go ahead and respond to the very specific allegation or argument against you by Mr. K.C. Singh, Ambassador K.C. Singh. Yes.
Number one, Barkha.
Yes.
And I don't know the name of the gentleman who was talking.
K.C. Singh, Ambassador K.C. Singh.
Mr. Singh, I was in the foreign service when you were in the IPS. Mr. Singh, I was in the foreign service when you were in the IPS.
Mr. Singh, you ask anybody to go into my background in the entire service in Bihar or in the government of India, and they will tell you that I am somebody who has always taken a stand wherever right or wrong is concerned, and I have stuck to it. And I have fought with many ministers.
No, he's asking why you only went public with it once you had joined.
Number one. Number two. Okay. Number two, as far as let me speak, yeah. Now, as far as this minister is concerned, this gentleman,
yes,
I took a stand. That's why there was a fight.
Mr. Shinde, why aren't we naming him? He's not
Otherwise,
the one who can't be named.
Otherwise, there would have been no fight.
Why did the fight start after you joined?
Everybody knows the name, so I don't have to name.
Yes.
The fact that I took a stand, and let me tell you something.
Yes.
I have seen officers, and I don't see many officers who have the courage to take a stand and stick to it. I have done that.
Well, I think,
I have done that.
But Mr. Singh, why did you not raise it earlier?
This gentleman has, and this is not the first time.
Okay.
I have taken stand throughout my career, and I have stuck to it.
Okay, let's move on.
And so the gentleman who made these snide remarks,
Mr. Singh, I'm not just a gentleman, I'm your senior. You were in the IPS when I was in foreign service. I was secretary to the government before you were home secretary. I'm not just a gentleman. I was secretary to the government before you were home secretary.
Now 1 minute.
Just to be fair,
you don't even recognize
the government in power.
Mr. R.K. Singh,
not when I take a stand against it.
Ambassador K.C. Singh.
Yeah, he says he doesn't know who I am.
Well, I hope you know who Ambassador K.C. Singh is making a principled, an argument on principle.
You see, it hurts when you speak the truth.
I'm giving an answer, no?
Yeah. So your answer is you always took a firm position. I want to move on now. Prakash, 1 minute.
Not from day one. From the day I was SDO.
Sorry, sir. Sorry.
You find out. And how can you, from the day I was sub-divisional magistrate.
Okay, Mr. R.K. Singh, the debate is not about individuals, it's about the principle. Sir, please.
And the basic thing is that the fight with Mr. Shinde was because I took a stand.
Just one sentence.
Okay, one sentence from Prakash Singh, and then Shekhar is waiting a long time.
Just to be fair to R.K. Singh, I have seen him functioning as Home Secretary. And while
this is Prakash Singh speaking. Acha, 1 minute. 1 minute.
Just to be fair to R.K. Singh, I have seen his functioning as
Mr. Prakash Singh is speaking now. Mr. R.K. Singh, Prakash Singh. Too many Singhs here, so I think it's getting confusing.
I think let Shekhar come in and kind of cool down.
Okay, let's calm down. Prakash Singh.
I have seen his functioning as Home Secretary, and I
can, sir, unko bolne dijiye, sir. Prakash Singh
can vouch. I mean, having seen his functioning as Home Secretary, that he was very firm and very decisive.
Okay.
While I do not agree with the arguments which he has given, but this must be placed on record that he was a firm and a decisive Home Secretary, and he acquitted himself extremely well.
Okay. Now can we go beyond individuals? And upright, said Mr. R.K. Singh. Shekhar, here's the point. Everybody is very outraged when their integrity is questioned. It's natural. But isn't that, I think, what S.Y. Qureshi
Not
and Prakash...
Not everybody, you find out.
Sir, I'm saying that I understand why you're angry, that everybody feels angry. If my integrity were questioned, I'd also be angry. I'm trying to raise a larger point. Let's come back to what we're talking about. Do you believe that a cooling off period is necessary? Because you've heard a mix of arguments here. And I find what Ashok Khemka has said, something we need to spend a little more time on. He's saying all the attention is on what bureaucrats and police officers do after retirement. Do they join parties? Do they join a corporation? What about the politicking for a post-retirement position?
Well, let me start by saying that I agree that there is much more danger with these after retirement jobs rather than with joining political parties. So that's point number one. But I think there are three broad issues because we've heard enough specifics. One is, what are the points for allowing this freedom to civil servants? There are 2 points. One is their own individual freedom. Every civil servant should have as an and the second is that a lot of them have the experience and the background which is essential in this country. So these are the two
administrative experience, exposure
to ideas. But what are the negative points? There are two negative points. One is public perception. We are today going through a stage in India where there is so much cynicism with all institutions, whether political or bureaucratic, that we have to be doubly sensitive of what the general people are thinking.
Yes.
And number two, real harm. As people have already mentioned, there are numerous cases where clearly civil servants have served the interests of an individual or a party in order to be rewarded by positions subsequently.
Yeah.
In fact, let me just say that two other things are happening which are new now. Civil servants are, and somebody mentions, appointing themselves to after retirement positions. So if you go back and see the history of all the department secretaries of DOPTs, for example, which is the department which does many of these appointments, almost all of them fix up a very interesting post for themselves before they retire. And this is all matter of public record. The second thing that's happening is civil servants are now creating after retirement posts for themselves. For example, one recent example, the Lokpal bill was passed in Parliament. The government of India has declared rules for selection of Lokpal.
Yes.
And if you see those rules, they have quietly said something which is not in the law, that all non-judicial members will be retired or serving secretaries to the government of India. They have actually said this in the rules which are not in the law. Therefore, should there be a cooling off period?
Yes.
I agree with Mr. Qureshi that it's a concept which is accepted. It has merits to it. Though it does, and I agree with you there, it does violate to some extent the individual right. But I think today we are in a circumstance where civil servants should be willing to curb that right, because there is a great need, social need, for their credibility to be re-established.
For the impression of...
But I'll say two other things. Let me just finish once. One is there are other ways of dealing with this which have not yet been tried. For example, if a civil servant wants to join a company or some other such institution, let him on affidavit or her on affidavit say that they did not for the 5 years before they are deal with that company.
Two things. I'm completely against civil servants joining the private sector.
Completely?
Completely.
Not even 1 year after?
No, not even 1 year after. If I have done a huge favor, as Mr. Khemka says, as Director of Oil Exploration, 2 years down the line, how does it matter to one of the biggest corporations in India where I join 1 year later or 2 years later? I think if you have been dealing in this kind of sectors, you should not be joining the private sector.
That's why you have to give that affidavit.
No, Shekhar.
Once you give an affidavit, then
bureaucrats are willing to give hundreds of affidavits. It means nothing.
No,
number one. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Number two.
And this has to be made transparent. Then we will file a case.
Number two. See, politics is a hard battle. Let me tell you, those who have the guts, bureaucrats. Like I give up 8 years of my IAS to join bureaucracy, and I was one of the toppers. I would have been the chief secretary. I gave it up one day and I walked out and I said, let people decide, did I work for you? Did I work for the citizen? Did I have a heart for you? Or was I honest? They elected me on the 32nd day, and therefore
a single swallow. Listen, we all need a chance to.
I'll come to you, Casey, right after this. Okay,
a single swallow does not a summer make.
Okay, complete your point.
Let's not take individual cases.
Let's go beyond individuals. Let's go beyond KJ Alphonse and RK Singh and Neeraj Kumar.
I think when bureaucrats quit and join politics, they should take the Lok Sabha route and not the Rajya Sabha route. They should get elected.
Okay, that's an interesting point. Ambassador Casey Singh, one point we've heard is private sector is actually more problematic than politics. Lok Sabha, not Rajya Sabha, so that it's a hard-fought election. Third is the concept of a cooling off period. Where do you come in? And fourth is Shekhar's very important point that there are other ways. You can declare in a sworn affidavit that you have not dealt with the company you're joining, or you have not taken... I don't know how that works with politics, by the way. Casey.
Barkha, when the moral fiber starts cracking,
you
can make exceptions and you can find exceptions. There's no end to it. There is the concept of an independent bureaucracy which gives advice, remains independent, and is not looking for any advantage.
Okay.
Thousands of people have served this country and gone away, not for any personal advantage, serving on very low salaries, very honest people from the 50s, 60s. Venkateshwaran, sacked by Rajiv Gandhi, resigned that very evening. I went to see him in the evening. I said, any number of opposition parties were willing to give him a ticket. He says, no, I will not come. Because he says, this is a public spectacle, I don't want to get into it.
So are any of these possible formulations you've heard healthy
we are saying,
or a way of addressing the issue?
Insulate the bureaucracy where any temptation is there.
How? That's easier said than done. And I want Mr. Qureshi to come in on this.
Which is that DIBs should not go as governors. Why should they go as? CEC should not be in active politics at all.
So directors of intelligence bureau should not go as governors. Election
the role of a
commissioners
governor is a
should
bridge.
not go to politics.
See, no, let's get to the principle.
Yeah.
Election commissioners should not be ever in politics, because and they should be given in constitutional positions. Because how can an umpire be a player? You can't do that. Otherwise, he'll be forever taking sides.
Yeah.
No, this is not rocket
science. So can I clarify this?
Yeah.
Are you saying some positions?
Yes.
EC, CAG,
should have a permanent
CVC,
ban. Yes,
permanent ban. But others?
Others, you create a gap. You make sure what is the principle is that you're not preparing for that position by taking positions while you are in service.
Would you agree with that, S.Y. Qureshi? A very interesting point from KC about election commissioners. We have had election commissioner M.S. Gill actually join government.
No, I agree with KC. In fact, my formulation would be that the chief election commissioner should not be allowed to take any job, whether in politics or in the government or even the private sector.
Permanent ban. Permanent ban.
Let me complete.
Okay.
There should be a total ban.
Okay.
However, after retirement, suddenly, he is only on pension. The formulation is very simple. You continue to give him full salary, which is only 40,000 extra for life. Give him a flat so that he is not dependent on anything, and then we can be the elder statesman. Then he can do real public service. That's a formulation, and it is doable. It doesn't cost much. After all, we get our pension is 50% of our last salary.
So you're saying pay them more post-retirement?
Yeah, no, continue to pay them full salary.
Absolutely.
Continue to pay them full salary for life, so that they don't have to look for any sanity.
Neeraj Kumar, this suggestion that is coming from Ambassador KC Singh and S.Y. Qureshi, that some posts have to be exempt.
I would agree with that. But that logic would apply to almost every senior position in the government. Because every senior position in the government is a sensitive assignment. I think it will be very difficult to differentiate.
Ashok Khemka, some positions?
I agree with this formulation that constitutional posts like the election commissioner, the Lokpal members or the judiciary, they should not come into politics to restore the faith in these constitutional positions. But I would just like to point out, sir, one thing, that the basic premise of senior government servants not joining politics is the conflict of interest while they are in government service. Now, if that is true, I found in the land related matters that this is the exact formulation I had prescribed, that every government servant must give on an affidavit, and this should be a cognizable offence, that there is no conflict of interest in the role which they are doing, duty which they are doing with their own personal or their family interest.
Okay, I
that
think
recommendation
that is a good
was
point.
not accepted. No, I'll give you two very simple examples. In consolidation, the deputy commissioner was found to be investing in the land in the village in which consolidation was taking place. In the town development plans, the senior officers or otherwise are investing in the land and doing the town development plan and marking the zones as commercial or industrial or whatever it is.
Okay.
So while in service there is a clear conflict of interest, why do you speak of conflict of interest between...
Only afterwards.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, this is something to take the conversation forward.
Of the problem.
I think it's a very important point. I'll take a few questions and come back to the panel. Yes. You believe bureaucrats should join politics?
Some of them, of course, some of them should be exempt completely. And I think Shekhar sir had a very good point, because even though I do see sense in Mr. Qureshi's point wherein a two-year cooling off period should be introduced, but any interview I go to, people go like, what's your plan in 5 years? 2 years is not that big a time, and we can look at other...
So 2 years is actually not a sufficient time to insulate from political or private influence. Let's take another question here.
I believe with great power comes great responsibility. So and now it's kind of been misused in Delhi. So what's your take on it? Like bureaucrats, we gave the bureaucrats a chance, but looks what they have done to the country.
So accountability of bureaucrats. Okay, some people say, and I don't know who wants to take this, Prakash Singh.
The perception about bureaucracy is quite faulty, because the same bureaucrats, when they come under the election commission to conduct the elections, they conduct a zero-error election every time.
Yeah.
And all we do is make sure that those who are partisan are removed, and only the neutral people are deployed. That means basically they're competent. You have to create the right environment for them to deliver.
Okay, Shekhar Singh, come in there.
It's not a lack of abilities. It is an unwillingness to do the right thing which has given the bureaucracy the bad name that it has today. Now, there are always good people, but by and large today you find that the faith or the trust in the bureaucracy is very low. And it's not because they're not bright people or competent people. They use that brightness and competence to push their own interests rather than the interests of the people.
I want Prakash Singh to come in on this, that this point that is being made about how you have to insulate the bureaucracy while they're still in government, not afterwards.
Barkha, I want to make one thing very clear. If you draw exceptions that people holding this post, people holding that post, they alone should not be allowed to join politics and others could. I think you will be running into serious problems.
Why?
Because the line of demarcation is very thin. And I would say that once you are Chief Secretary or once you are Director General Police, you have such a wide range where you can influence decision making. I would say that the highest, once you have reached the top, there should be a blanket ban because the lines are very blurred.
Blanket ban or cooling off period?
Blanket ban on their joining immediately.
On what
and therefore there should be
positions?
There must be a mandatory cooling off period for all bureaucrats, whether joining politics or getting any post.
It was your argument that certain posts have to be exempt, but everyone seems to be saying it's not practical to leave some posts out.
No, I think you make a distinction between constitutional positions,
okay,
where they've been given those things for a specific job prescribed under the Constitution. I think there the ban should be complete, as Mr. Qureshi said. For other people reaching the top of the service, I think a cooling off is necessary. You must make a distinction.
Do you agree with Dr. Qureshi?
You know, but I'm just on a point of fact. The fact is that some constitutional positions are already under this category, like UPSC members.
But so how come the Election Commission is not under this?
No, that's a different issue. There is no bar on Election Commission either in the Constitution or the law. But UPSC members cannot take up any job after retirement. So it is what KC is saying extended to all others also.
So UPSC member who's gone as governor.
So sorry, sir.
Mr. Paul has gone as governor.
Well, that the rule, as I understood, was that they cannot take up any job.
But in the new law, the Lokpal, all the members and chairperson cannot take up any post after they retire, either in the central government or the state government.
Let's take a question here, then Mr. Alphonse.
My question is this, joining out of politics, how to strengthen our democracy? Not it is just joining of the politics.
Your question?
My question is to Mr. KC Singh. Sir, in a broader way, I want to ask, who else should join politics? Either we have dynasts, either we have criminals, or we have illiterates, right? What the best option we have left with is the bureaucrats, because they have been into the system from so long, they have worked into it and they are experienced.
Sir, please respond to that.
Look, you're right. At the moment, the avenues are few because most parties are controlled by families. It is correct, it's hereditary. Other than probably CPM and one other odd. So essentially, that is the current situation. Another party, I don't want to name it, has risen on the basis of defying this. Now, therefore, there is a churning. It's your younger generation. When we joined the service, you joined it for life. Your generation doesn't join anything for life. You gain experience, you're moving laterally. There's a lot of lateral movement in India. We, earlier generations, are delivering you an India which has managed to survive in this very difficult situation in South Asia where other democracies have gone
But it's
down
an
the drain.
Interesting thing to hear that people are saying, who else?
True.
You know?
But in order to fix it, let's not also damage one of the few institutions which provides continuity.
Okay.
Because the bureaucracy gives you continuity.
Okay, before I, Mr. Arkison, give me a second.
Come and go.
Yeah, 1 second, one question, and then Mr. Alphonse, and then Mr. Arkison.
In most cases, the politicians appoint the bureaucrats as governor or CAG or CEC. So my point is, like, shouldn't we be more concerned with the politicians and eradicating corruption at the root?
Mr. Arkison, please. Yes.
Now, I think there are greater chances of conflict of interest if you have people from, let's say, the private sector coming into politics.
Yes. Okay.
Or even people who are in business coming into politics.
Okay. That's true. The reverse flow also we have to speak about.
For their business interests or their company's interests.
Yes.
There are greater chances of conflict of interest if you have practicing lawyers coming into politics. Because there have been instances of they're having represented different parties in cases,
and then joining those parties, yes,
and handling those handling those very same cases as ministers.
Yes.
You see, and my basic question remains unanswered. That you have active politicians as ministers and taking final decisions on all issues.
Okay, I think that's an important point. Mr. Alphonse, come in on that. Mr. Alphonse, come in. Mr. Arkison, you've raised an interesting point.
You don't feel that will lead to a conflict of interest?
No, I think you're saying it's a valid question you have raised. Lawyers, business people, if bureaucrats are to have freedom of choice, then what about the possible conflicts of interest when you have industrialists in parliament? You have now prominent lawyers embracing politics.
And media personalities.
And media persons. Huge by the way, huge conflict of interest. I actually find it quite problematic. Mr. Alphonse.
I really think the only way to cleanse politics is for good people to come into politics.
Yes.
Now, who are good people?
Yes.
I think bureaucrats. Now, if you take the civil service, about 400,000 people write the examinations every year. About 800 people get into the civil service. It's a brilliant lot.
Yeah.
They worked in civil service for 30, 40 years.
Yes.
And then, see, there are these, about 10% of these people do an outstanding job.
Even, but how do you address the conflict of interest?
How do you address the very serious... If you take this whole segment of best people coming in, I think the bureaucrats do make the best kind of category, because you, to begin with, come through a process of
that point has been made. That point has been made. Okay, so I have to start taking last comments now.
Okay, let me give you the example of Israel.
Yeah.
They passed a law, because it's a besieged state, with paranoia. They passed a law that retiring chiefs of army staff cannot come into politics straight away.
Yeah.
Because a number of their prime ministers and leaders were coming from the army.
But that could be to not politicize the army.
No.
Wouldn't that be a different debate?
That's because the heroes were coming in and the politicians felt they couldn't compete with them. That's a different matter.
Okay.
But I said, and that is an iron framework. Okay. Bureaucracy, all the more reason, if other kinds of people are coming into politics, bureaucracy's basic principle of remaining the check and therefore giving advice, independent advice to the politician, putting it on the file, is the check on anyone coming in with a conflict. You see the dispute the other day over the transfer of the health secretary. It's all over the newspapers. He's made a point.
But I think we also have to talk about insulating the bureaucrat from political influence while the bureaucrat is a bureaucrat, like fixed tenures, for example. These are also very important things. Now, I have time just for last comments, so I'll take a couple of audience questions and last comments from all of you.
I think the politician-bureaucrat nexus is only there for around 5% of the civil servants who are really branded. The rest of the civil servants will actually suffer if they are denied an opportunity to do something which is within their core competency. A politician is a legislator. He is involved in development. He makes laws, and he has to implement projects.
So would you support a cooling off period?
No, I don't support a cooling off period, because it doesn't hit at the root cause, which Mr. Khemka said is part of the problem.
Is while in service. Okay, let's take a question.
See, we have already shown interdependence between executive and the legislative. So why leave judiciary out of it? Judges have shown that they are impartial throughout. So after retirement, they can also join politics, and they are the most integrity-based people in the country. Right?
Very interesting. S.Y. Qureshi, tomorrow judges will join politics?
In fact, that same logic should extend to not only the judges, but also the defense services. Because if you want the neutrality of these institutions to stay, this is very important.
Okay, question here.
I think the cooling off period is very, very important, because the bureaucracy also has access to a lot of classified information, and the cooling off period can make sure that, things have changed by the time they go and join the government or the politics.
Let's just put a random sample here. Those of you who believe there should be a cooling off period, raise your hands. There should be some time gap, a time gap between the time somebody actually leaves their job to come into politics. I'll take the last couple of audience questions and we'll start taking last comments. Why do you think a cooling off period is important?
Exposure to information can always be misused, with projects running into years and years, where politicians have bought land where airports have come 10 years later. It's a question of integrity. And one more point, technocrats and bureaucrats, when some people are claiming that they make better politicians, is a classiest kind of a statement. It's the strength of the bureaucrat. Even an uneducated person can be an excellent. Political parties are losing out on grassroots politicians when these soft politicians take the Rajya Sabha route and not the Lok Sabha route.
Okay, last comments. I've got to start taking last comments. Neeraj Kumar, let's start with you. Any thoughts on how you can address the public perception of conflict of interest?
No, I have already said that this matter has been gone into in great detail.
Yes.
By the government, and it has held that there is no conflict of interest. And
you think it should stay as it is?
Be no.
Would you accept Shekhar's proposal of an affidavit to say that no dealings with
Yeah, I mean, that affidavit can be given, but you're
not very convinced of it.
It is violative of Article 14 of the Constitution.
So violative of your individual liberty. Last question here.
if the bureaucrats, definitely they are the most eligible people in India who are completely aware of the constitution, law and everything.
So you're saying they make good politicians?
Definitely.
Okay, we're hearing very different. Are you a bureaucrat by the way? No. Okay, just checking. Just checking. All right, last comments, Alphonse. 30 seconds each, please, to everybody. I'm really out of time. Yes.
I think bureaucrats who are committed to the citizen of India should come into politics.
Okay, R.K. Singh, last words.
I think there is no conflict of interest when officers join politics after retirement or after resignation.
All right, question here?
Barkha, do we have any shining example of a bureaucrat joining politics and made a positive change?
Let's yes. Okay, one minute. Someone, I heard someone say Arvind Kejriwal.
Straight.
Okay, but that is
straight here.
Okay,
straight here.
1 minute. Mr. Alphonse is raising his hand for himself. Ashok Khemka, last words.
Barkha, politics is a potpourri.
Yes.
And let's not exclude one class of people for the reason that we may avoid conflict of service while they were in service.
Okay.
There are a lot of decisions which bureaucrats take where there is a direct conflict of interest.
Yes.
Let us address that.
Okay.
And in case they have taken any decision while in service which is in conflict of interest with the prospective political role they are going to adopt after retirement,
okay,
let's go ahead with a charge sheet, because there is a time limitation of 4 years after their retirement.
Okay.
But let's not throw the baby along with the bathwater.
Okay, Shekhar Singh, last words, then KC, then S.Y. Qureshi wraps it up for us. Shekhar.
Yeah, I think the right way is not to go to one extreme or the other, either ban everything for all civil servants or say everything is open.
Yeah.
I feel there are 3 steps that should emerge. One is certain positions should be such, like for example, the Election Commission should not be allowed to join political parties after they retire, etc. And this should not be violative of your fundamental rights, because it can be made clear before you join that these are the conditions. You don't want those conditions, don't join. Nobody forces you, number one. Number 2, I think certain checks and balances. I've already mentioned the affidavit system. There is another system that should be tried out. Retiring judges, retiring civil servants who are keen to get after retirement jobs should not be selected by the government. They should be put their names on a panel, and you either have a lottery system. People think that's outlandish. You pick up names by the lottery and go there'll be no worse, so that nobody will run around trying to suck favor. And the last point I would like to make is that you need in any case all around much greater transparency if any of these systems have to work.
Ambassador Singh, last words.
Well, it had to be the son of a bureaucrat who could come up with all that wisdom. So I agree with that. But Barkha, this is one of the last semi-functional institutions in India. Let's not compromise the bureaucracy further. Till rest of India matures and the other institutions mature, let's not fiddle with it.
Prakash?
I'm not against bureaucrats or other categories of civil servants joining politics, but it is absolutely essential that their integrity and objectivity is maintained, especially when they reach the peak of their career.
So why
and for that, a cooling off period is therefore mandatory.
S.Y. Qureshi, the law, the recommendation of the EC was not accepted by the government. Why do you think that is?
We were surprised that they rejected it. But we were surprised that they normally they sit over our proposals, but they rejected it.
They were in a big hurry to reject it.
And we understand that they are now regretting it. For the reasons, I reiterate my, first comment that there is no harm in bureaucrats joining politics, but after a cooling off period, because they have a great pool of experience. But you make a rule. What is more important, that the rule should be followed uniformly.
Okay. Well, we have to end there. It's not something we've reached any agreement on, unfortunately, except to say that a number of people believe it's their individual liberty and they bring a wealth of experience, and others are saying we're not disputing that. But there is a moment of inflection in this country right now, and institutional sanctity is very, very important. But of course, as we focus on what happens to the Babu after service, it's as important to insulate her or him from political pressure, while in service that may be even more imperative. We leave it there. Thank you very much. Thank you.